"Cowboy, by sacred law, if you want my sister, you must please them all first." The dust road had seen many travelers, but none like him. When the cowboy rode into the town, the sun was already leaning low, spreading orange light over dry fields and old wooden fences. His clothes were worn not for style but for work. His boots were scuffed, his hat faded by years under open skies. He did not ride fast or slow. He rode like someone who had learned patience the hard way. People noticed him right away. In a town where everyone knew everyone, a stranger always stood out. A few men paused their talk outside the supply store. A woman at the water pump glanced up, then looked away. Children stared without hiding their curiosity. The cowboy did not stare back. He nodded politely, kept his eyes forward, and rode on until he found the small stable at the edge of town. He asked for work, not favors. The stable owner, an older man with sharp eyes and a stiff back, studied him for a long moment. He asked where the cowboy came from. The cowboy said he had been moving from place to place, taking honest jobs, sleeping where he could, and paying his way. He did not add anything else. He did not complain. He did not try to impress. The stable owner handed him a broom and pointed to the stalls. "If you work well," he said, "you eat." That was enough. From the first day, the cowboy worked quietly. He cleaned, repaired loose boards, carried water, and helped with animals that were not easy to handle. He did not rush. He did not cut corners. When others rested, he checked his work again. By the end of the day, the stable looked better than it had in months. Word spread slowly at first. The stranger was useful. He was respectful. He paid for his meals and thanked people even when they did not expect it. He did not drink too much. He did not speak badly of anyone. In a place where gossip traveled fast, his silence became noticeable. It was during his second week in town that he first saw her clearly. She was standing outside a small house near the main path, holding a basket of clean clothes. Her hair was tied back, her dress simple, her posture calm. She looked like someone who carried responsibility without complaint. When she laughed at something her younger cousin said, it was soft and brief, as if joy was something she allowed herself only in small pieces. The cowboy passed by with a crate on his shoulder. Their eyes met for a moment. Nothing dramatic happened. No one stopped breathing. But something settled quietly inside him like a thought he could not shake. He did not turn back to look at her again. He kept walking. In this town, families were not just groups of people. They were systems. Each had rules, spoken and unspoken. Her family was one of the oldest, known for holding tightly of her roots and strong values. They were respected because they were careful. They did not rush decisions. They did not allow outsiders close without reason. Her brother was often seen nearby. He was not much older than her, but he carried himself like someone used to responsibility. People listened when he spoke. He did not raise his voice, but his words carried weight. He watched the town the way a guard watches a gate. He noticed the cowboy. At first he said nothing. He observed how the stranger worked. He noticed how people began to rely on him. He noticed the brief, respectful greetings between the cowboy and his sister. They were always short, always proper. No one could accuse either of crossing a line. Still, the brother knew better than to ignore small changes. The woman, for her part, kept her distance. She was polite, nothing more. Yet, when the cowboy helped her carry something heavy without being asked, she thanked him with real warmth. When he passed her family's home, she acknowledged him instead of looking away. These small things meant something in a place like this. The cowboy felt the weight of it. He was not foolish. He understood that interest alone meant nothing here. This was not a place where a man could simply declare his feelings and expect an answer. He had seen towns like this before. He knew what happened to men who disrespected boundaries, so he stayed careful. He focused on his work. He fixed a broken fence for an elderly couple without charging extra. He helped during a sudden storm, guiding animals to safety, even though it was not his responsibility. He returned a lost pouch of money without opening it. Each action added to his quiet reputation. One evening, as the sky darkened and the town settled into silence, the brother approached him outside the stable. He did not smile. He did not threaten. He stood at a respectful distance, arms crossed, eyes steady. "You've been here a while," the brother said. "Yes," the cowboy replied. "You plan to stay, if there's work." The brother nodded slowly. "People talk." The cowboy waited. He had learned that silence often invited truth. "They say you're interested in my sister." The words were calm, but the meaning was sharp. The cowboy did not deny it. He did not rush to defend himself. He took a breath. "I respect her," he said, "and your family. That's not an answer. It's the honest one." The brother studied him closely, looking for signs of arrogance, fear, or dishonesty. He found none. That did not mean trust came easily. "In this family," the brother said, "nothing is simple. We don't believe in promises made lightly." "I wouldn't make one I couldn't keep." The brother's expression did not change, but something shifted. "Even so," he continued, "interest alone means nothing. If you think you can just walk in and expect acceptance, you're mistaken." The cowboy nodded. "I don't expect anything." "Good," the brother said, "because wanting my sister means understanding what comes with it." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "By sacred law," he said, not dramatically but firmly, "if you want her, you must please them all first." The words hung in the air. "The elders, the family, the people who stand with us, their trust is not given, it is earned." The cowboy felt the weight of that statement settle on him. This was not a challenge made for pride. This was a warning, a chance to walk away before things became complicated. He thought of the road he had traveled for years, the places he never stayed. The feeling of always moving on before something could take root. He thought of her calm strength, her quiet presence. "I understand," he said. "Do you?" the brother asked. "Because this won't be quick, and it won't be easy." "I don't need quick," the cowboy replied. "And I'm not afraid of hard." The brother watched him for another long moment, then he straightened. "Then remember this," he said. "Every step you take will be watched, every mistake will be remembered. That's fair." The brother turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing." "Yes, if at any point you bring trouble to her name, you're done. No second chances." The cowboy met his eyes. "I won't." The brother walked away without another word. That night the cowboy lay awake longer than usual. The stable was quiet, the sounds of animals steady and familiar. He stared at the dark ceiling and felt something he had not felt in a long time. Not fear, not excitement, commitment. He knew now that this town was not just a place to pass through, it was a test. And whether he passed or failed would depend not on words, but on what he chose to do next. Outside, the dust road rested under the moonlight, waiting. The next morning came early, as it always did in the town. The cowboy woke before the sun, the air still cool and quiet. For a few moments he lay still, listening to the soft sounds around him. Animals shifted in their stalls. Somewhere far away, a rooster called. Life was moving forward just as it always had, but for him something had changed. The brother's words stayed in his mind. "You must please them all first." It was not said as a threat, but it felt heavier than one. The cowboy understood that this was not about showing off or trying to impress people with big gestures. This was about time, patience, and behavior when no one was clapping. He stood up, washed his face, and began his work as usual. He did not act differently. He did not try to be seen more. He knew better than that. People in this town noticed effort, but they trusted consistency. That day, the stable owner asked him to help repair a section of fencing near the fields owned by one of the elders. The fence had been broken for weeks, and no one had gotten around to fixing it. The cowboy gathered his tools and walked there without complaint. The elder was an old man with slow movements and sharp eyes. He watched the cowboy work for a while without speaking. The cowboy did not rush. He measured carefully, replaced damaged wood, and tightened everything properly. When the job was done, he cleaned up the area instead of leaving scraps behind. The elder nodded once. It was a small gesture, but in this town it meant something. As days passed, the cowboy began to understand that every person connected to the family had different expectations. One uncle cared deeply about honesty. He would ask direct questions and expect clear answers. Another valued responsibility and noticed who showed up on time and who did not. An aunt believed respect was shown in tone and patience, especially toward elders. The cowboy learned to listen more than he spoke. When someone asked about his past, he did not hide it, but he did not decorate it either. He spoke simply. He had worked hard. He had made mistakes. He had learned from them. He did not blame anyone else for where he stood in life. Not everyone was impressed. Some people whispered that he was just pretending. Others said outsiders always behaved well at first. A few believed he would leave the moment things became difficult. The cowboy heard these things, sometimes directly, sometimes through silence and looks. He did not respond. He knew that words would not change minds here. The woman remained mostly distant. When their paths crossed, they greeted each other politely. Nothing more. Yet sometimes, when she thought no one was watching, she looked at him with something like quiet concern. She knew what was being asked of him. She also knew how heavy that path could be. One afternoon, the brother called him aside again. This time, they met near the fields, away from other ears. "You've started," the brother said. It was not praise, just an observation. "Yes," the cowboy replied. "Don't misunderstand," the brother continued. "Doing your work well is expected. It doesn't earn trust on its own." "I know," the brother crossed his arms. "Some in the family don't believe effort matters if blood doesn't match. That's their right." The brother studied him. "You don't seem bothered." "I don't need everyone to like me," the cowboy said. "I need to be fair." The brother said nothing for a moment. "The first real test is coming," he said finally, "and it won't feel fair." The cowboy nodded. "I'm ready." A few days later, the test revealed itself. There was a gathering planned at one of the family homes. It was not a celebration, but a meeting to discuss shared responsibilities in the community. Outsiders were rarely invited. When word spread that the cowboy had been asked to attend, people were surprised. Some were unhappy. The cowboy arrived early. He stood near the edge of the space, not pushing forward. When offered a seat, he accepted politely. When ignored, he waited patiently. The conversations around him were careful. Some people spoke openly. Others watched him closely, measuring every movement. At one point, an elder asked him to speak about himself. The question was simple, but the moment was heavy. Everyone went quiet. The cowboy stood. His hands were steady. "I'm here to work," he said, "and to live honestly. I don't expect special treatment. I only ask to be judged by what I do, not where I come from." Some nodded. Others remained unmoved. Then came the harder questions. Why had he never settled before? Why should the family trust him with something precious? What guarantee did he offer that he would not leave when life became difficult? He answered calmly. "There are no guarantees," he said. "Only choices made every day. I can't promise perfection. I can promise effort and respect." The room stayed quiet. When the gathering ended, no one told him how he had done. No one thanked him. He walked back to the stable with uncertainty heavy on his shoulders. That night, doubt crept in for the first time. He wondered if the brother was right to make this so difficult. He wondered if the family would ever see him as more than an outsider. He wondered if asking him to face so much alone was fair. The next morning brought no answers, only more work. A problem arose in the town when supplies went missing from a shared storehouse. Whispers spread quickly. Some looked at the cowboy first. He was new. He was easy to doubt. When confronted, he did not grow angry. He did not defend himself loudly. He offered to help find the truth. Hours passed as people searched and questioned one another. The tension grew. The cowboy worked alongside everyone else, lifting, sorting, checking records. Finally, the missing supplies were found, misplaced by mistake. No one apologized directly, but the looks changed slightly. Later that day, the woman passed him on the road. She stopped just for a moment. "I know this isn't easy," she said softly. He met her eyes. "Nothing worth keeping ever is." She nodded once and walked on. That small exchange gave him more strength than he expected. Still, the path ahead was unclear. He had survived the first test, but he knew more were coming. Trust here was not earned in weeks, but in seasons. As the sun set over the town, the cowboy stood quietly, understanding that pleasing them all did not mean changing who he was. It meant showing, again and again, that he was willing to stand his ground with patience, even when the ground felt unsteady. And somewhere nearby, eyes continued to watch, waiting for the moment he would stumble or prove he belonged. Days turned into weeks, and the town slowly grew used to seeing the cowboy everywhere. He was no longer just the stranger at the stable. He became the man people expected to see before sunrise, already working, already focused. Still, being seen did not mean being accepted. The watching never stopped. Every small action mattered now. If he arrived early, some thought he was trying too hard. If he arrived on time, others felt he lacked passion. If he stayed late, they wondered what he was trying to prove. The cowboy learned that no matter what he did, someone would find a reason to question it. So he stopped trying to guess what others wanted and focused on doing what felt right. The work grew heavier. One week he helped repair a broken water path that served several families. Another week he spent long days in the fields, helping during a difficult harvest. His hands blistered, then hardened. His back ached, but he never complained. When thanked, he nodded. When ignored, he kept going. Some of the elders began to soften, but quietly. They did not praise him openly. Instead, they gave him more responsibility. That was how trust started here, not with words, but with weight. Not everyone was willing to let go of doubt. A few men in town did not like how quickly the cowboy had become useful. They believed loyalty was something earned only over many years, not months. To them, the cowboy's calm nature felt suspicious. They watched him closely, waiting for a mistake. The brother noticed this tension. He said nothing, but his eyes followed every interaction. He had begun to respect the cowboy's discipline, yet he was still bound by duty. His role was not to be fair to one man, but to protect his family from any risk. The woman remained careful. She spoke kindly to everyone, as she always had, but her presence felt heavier now. People watched her reactions, her pauses, her silences. She felt trapped between tradition and truth. She knew the cowboy was being tested in ways no one admitted out loud. One afternoon, a task came up that no one wanted. A distant part of the land had been damaged by a sudden storm. Fences were down, animals scattered, and the path was rough. The brother asked for volunteers. No one stepped forward. "I'll go," the cowboy said. The brother looked at him. "It's not safe. You'll be alone." "I won't be careless." The brother hesitated, then nodded. "Be back before dark." The cowboy worked until his arms shook with exhaustion. He fixed what he could, guided the animals back, and marked what needed more help later. By the time he returned, the sun was low, his clothes soaked with sweat and dust. Some people saw his condition and said nothing. Others whispered that he was showing off. The cowboy did not hear all of it, but he felt the weight of their judgment pressing down harder than the work itself. That night, for the first time since arriving, he questioned himself deeply. He wondered if this path was endless, if no matter how much he gave, it would never be enough. He wondered if pleasing everyone was even possible. The next challenge came without warning. A misunderstanding arose between two families over shared land use. Voices were raised. Accusations were made. The cowboy had been working nearby that day, and someone claimed he had seen something important. Suddenly, he was pulled into a situation he had never asked to be part of. People demanded answers. They wanted him to take a side. The cowboy felt the pressure build. If he spoke carelessly, he could anger one family. If he stayed silent, the other might think he was hiding something. He knew this moment mattered more than many before it. He chose his words carefully. "I saw what happened," he said, "but I don't believe either side meant harm. I believe it was confusion." That answer satisfied no one fully. Some accused him of avoiding truth. Others said he was protecting his own position. The tension grew worse. The brother watched closely, his face unreadable. Later that evening, the cowboy learned that his honesty had been questioned. Rumors spread that he was clever with words, that he was trying to stay clean instead of standing firm. The whispers cut deeper than hard labor ever could. For the first time, anger rose inside him. Not loud anger, but a sharp, quiet frustration. He had done everything asked of him. He had respected every boundary. Still, suspicion followed him like a shadow. The woman noticed the change. When she saw him sitting alone near the stable one evening, she stopped. She did not speak right away. She simply stood nearby as if sharing the silence. "You look tired," she said gently. "I am," he replied, "not just from work." He hesitated, then nodded. "Sometimes doing the right thing feels invisible." She looked down at her hands. "In this town, people test silence as much as words." He smiled slightly. "I'm learning that." She wanted to say more, he could see it, but she didn't. She knew her voice carried weight, and using it too soon could change everything for better or worse. The breaking moment came days later. A valuable item went missing from one of the family homes. Panic spread quickly. This time, the accusations were sharper. The cowboy had been nearby that morning. Someone remembered seeing him leave earlier than usual. Before he could even speak, suspicion settled on him like dust after a storm. The brother confronted him privately. "Did you take it?" "No," the cowboy said without hesitation. "Can you prove it?" The cowboy paused. He could explain where he had been, but doing so would expose someone else's mistake, someone young and afraid, who had already been judged harshly by others. He faced a choice: defend himself fully and let another fall, or stay silent and risk everything he had worked for. "I can explain," he said slowly, "but it would hurt someone who doesn't deserve it." The brother stared at him. "You're willing to carry blame, if that's the cost of being fair." The brother said nothing. His jaw tightened. The situation grew tense. Some elders were ready to turn the cowboy away for good. Others hesitated. They sensed something deeper at play, something they could not see clearly. The item was found the next day, misplaced in a panic. The truth came out quietly. No announcements were made. No apologies spoken, but something shifted. The brother began to see the cowboy differently, not as a risk to be managed, but as a man willing to sacrifice comfort for integrity. The elders noticed his restraint. The whispers softened, though they did not disappear. The cowboy felt drained but steadier. He had almost lost everything, yet he had stayed true to himself. He understood now that this path was not about pleasing everyone. It was about remaining honorable when pleasing everyone was impossible. As he stood under the open sky that evening, watching the town settle into night, he knew the trials were not over. But he also knew something else. Even if the road broke him, it would not change who he was. And somewhere in the quiet, the balance began to shift, slowly, silently, toward a future no one could yet name. The town had grown quieter after the recent tensions, but the air still held the weight of unspoken judgments. People went about their work with careful glances and cautious steps. The cowboy continued his daily routines, waking before sunrise, working in the fields, repairing fences, and tending to animals. Each day was physically demanding, but the hardest part was not the labor. It was the constant observation, the sense that every action was being recorded in silent memory. Despite all he had endured, the cowboy's resolve did not waver. He had learned to work not for praise but for the simple truth of doing what was right. He carried himself with patience, answering questions honestly, never raising his voice, and never pushing himself into conversations he had no business being in. Yet the shadow of doubt still lingered around him. Some townsfolk whispered that his composure was suspicious, that perhaps he had hidden motives, or that the charm in his quiet smile was carefully calculated. The woman noticed the tension surrounding him more than anyone else did. She saw the effort he made to maintain dignity in every action, and she began to respect him quietly, even if she dared not say so aloud. But she was caught in her own struggle. She cared for him, yet she could not directly intervene without causing gossip or disapproval. Her position was delicate, caught between loyalty to her family and a growing admiration for the cowboy's character. One morning, a serious situation arose. A fire had started near the edge of the fields, likely caused by a spark from a farmer's work. It spread quickly through dry grass, threatening the barns, homes, and livestock. People panicked. Some ran for help, some tried to fight it themselves, and some stood frozen, unsure what to do. The cowboy did not hesitate. He grabbed buckets, ropes, and tools and ran toward the flames. He coordinated with others, shouting clear directions, moving calmly through smoke and heat. His hands blistered, his lungs burned, and the sweat poured down his face. The brother arrived at the scene, observing quietly. For the first time, he saw the cowboy in action under real pressure. Not judged, not tested artificially, but confronted with danger that could destroy lives. The cowboy worked tirelessly, helping children and elders evacuate animals, protecting what he could and never asking for thanks. Hours later, the fire was contained, and the worst had been avoided. Word of his courage and calm behavior spread through the town, though some remained skeptical. It was not the kind of story people shouted from rooftops. It was subtle, shared in conversations by those who had witnessed it firsthand. The cowboy, however, did not dwell on recognition. He simply returned to his work the next day as though nothing extraordinary had happened. But challenges were not finished. A week later, a serious misunderstanding arose at one of the family homes. A valuable object had gone missing, and accusations began to fly. The cowboy, who had been nearby at the time, became an instant suspect. People whispered and stared, their eyes filled with doubt. This was the test he had been warned about, the kind where honesty and restraint were more powerful than words. He was brought forward by the brother for questioning. The family elders demanded an explanation, some suspicious, others quietly watching for truth. The cowboy spoke calmly. "I did not take it," he said. "I will help find it, but I cannot speak for what I did not see." He avoided anger, avoided blame, and offered assistance without self-interest. Hours passed. Evidence was checked. The town grew tense, and the woman stayed quietly nearby, observing, understanding, yet saying nothing. Eventually, the object was found. It had been misplaced. No one apologized directly, but the truth was clear. The elder's eyes softened, and the brother regarded him with a new respect. Despite relief, the cowboy felt the exhaustion in a deeper way than before. This test had been invisible, yet it had been far more grueling than any labor he had done. He had been challenged not by work, but by judgment, doubt, and expectation. The strength he had relied on until now had been tested to its limit. The woman approached him that evening. The sun had set, painting the sky with soft shades of orange and pink. "You've done more than anyone expected," she said quietly, "and yet you've endured quietly." The cowboy smiled faintly. "I do what I must. Approval doesn't come from effort alone, but from choices." She nodded. "You understand what many here cannot. That character is shown when no one is praising you." He looked out at the town, the stable, the distant fields. "I am learning. Every day teaches something new. Every doubt, every question, it is part of the way forward." The brother later approached him, alone this time. His expression was still serious, but a subtle shift was visible. "You could have spoken to protect yourself fully," he said. "It would have been easier, but you chose silence over harm to another." "That's what felt right," the cowboy replied. The brother's jaw tightened. He did not speak further, but his glance conveyed approval. The choice had been observed, remembered, and valued, though not everyone in the town would understand. Days turned into weeks, and the balance of opinion slowly began to shift. The cowboy was still watched, still measured, still tested in subtle ways, but the sense of suspicion lessened. Some townspeople began to seek his counsel, quietly respecting the man who had endured without complaint, who had chosen fairness over personal safety, who had carried the weight of judgment without losing himself. Even the woman allowed herself small gestures, a brief smile, a quiet nod, a touch on a shoulder when she thought no one was watching. Each moment built a connection, subtle and slow, like a stream carving its path through stone. Yet neither of them spoke openly about feelings, knowing the weight of tradition and observation in the town. The cowboy, however, remained focused. He knew that true acceptance was not given lightly and that the next challenge could come at any moment. He had endured suspicion, misjudgment, and doubt. He had faced real danger. He had remained calm when others faltered. And still, he knew the journey was far from complete. Late one evening, he walked along the dust road, alone under the stars. The town slept quietly around him, and the air was calm. He thought of the woman, of the brother, of the elders, of every test that had come before. He realized that pleasing them all was not about action alone. It was about integrity, patience, and enduring even when recognition was not offered. A soft wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere, a dog barked, and a distant light flickered in a window. The cowboy paused, feeling the weight of the road behind him and the uncertainty of the road ahead. He knew he could not control every judgment or every expectation. What he could control was his choice, to act honestly, to endure, and to remain himself no matter what came next. And somewhere in the quiet distance, the town watched, measured, and waited, not yet ready to fully accept him, but slowly learning that this stranger, this cowboy, was different. That he was not only willing to endure their trials, but to carry their expectations with dignity, strength, and patience. This understanding, unspoken but powerful, became the foundation for what was to come. It would not be immediate, it would not be easy, but it marked the turning point where suspicion began to shift toward respect, and where the cowboy's path toward the family, and perhaps toward love, truly began. The morning arrived quietly, with the soft golden light spilling across the town. The air was cool, carrying a sense of calm after the weeks of tension that had passed. The cowboy rose early, as he always did, feeling a sense of purpose that went beyond the work he had done before. This day would be different, he could sense it, though he did not yet know how. The town had changed subtly. People who had once whispered about him now nodded in recognition. Some still doubted, but fewer every day. The elders, while careful, had begun to observe him with eyes that hinted at respect. They were not praising him openly, but their trust had begun to take root. This was the start of acceptance, not complete approval, but it was enough to show that his efforts had not been in vain. The woman appeared that morning near the stable, carrying baskets of freshly washed clothes. She had watched him quietly through every test, every challenge, every moment of doubt and strength. Now her expression carried something new, soft relief mixed with cautious hope. The cowboy noticed her glance, and he felt a calm warmth, a sense of shared understanding that went beyond words. The brother approached him next, his expression steady, serious as always. "It's time," he said simply. The words were not a command but a recognition. "The family will meet soon. They will speak openly. What comes next will determine how far you've truly earned their trust." The cowboy nodded. He had expected this moment, but that did not make it easier. He had walked carefully, step by step, through suspicion, misunderstanding, and doubt. Now he would face the culmination of all his efforts, the moment when every decision, every act of patience, and every display of integrity would be measured together. The gathering took place at the main family home, a place where tradition was strongest. The room was filled with relatives, elders, and others who had been part of the tests he had endured. The air was thick with quiet observation. Each person present had their own expectations, their own standards. Some had been openly skeptical of him. Others had been quietly watching, waiting for a sign that he could be trusted. The cowboy entered calmly. He did not rush. He did not seek to charm or impress. He simply stood, showing the same quiet confidence he had carried through all challenges. His hands were clean, but the signs of work and effort were still present. Calloused fingers, a strong posture, eyes steady and honest. The brother spoke first. "We have watched you," he said. "We have seen your actions, your choices, your honesty, and your restraint. But the final words come not from me alone, but from those who stand with us. Speak, and tell them what you intend if you are accepted among us." The cowboy's voice was calm, clear, and firm. "I have come not to seek approval for myself, but to show that I can be trusted. I cannot promise perfection. I cannot promise life without difficulty. But I can promise honesty, effort, and respect for each of you, for your family, and for the woman I care for. I will not abandon my integrity, and I will not ask her to sacrifice hers. This is all I can offer." A silence followed, heavy and meaningful. Some eyes softened. Some nodded. A few remained skeptical, but there was a shift. They saw a man who had endured every test, faced doubt and danger, and still remained true to himself. Approval was not given because of charm or words. It was earned through consistency, restraint, and patience. The woman stepped forward, her voice quiet but strong. "I have watched him," she said. "I have seen his choices, his strength, and his care. I have seen him respect my family, even when it would have been easier not to. I cannot speak for every judgment here, but I know his heart and his intentions. He has earned my respect, and mine is not given lightly." Some members of the family murmured in agreement. Others still observed cautiously, weighing each word. The brother remained silent, watching, then finally spoke. "By the traditions we follow, by the standards we uphold, he has proven himself worthy. Not because he is perfect, but because he has acted with integrity, respect, and patience every day, even when it was difficult. That is what we honor." The room seemed to exhale quietly. Acceptance, measured and deliberate, had been given. The cowboy did not smile openly, did not celebrate. He remained steady, understanding that trust is built quietly, not with grand gestures. But inside there was relief. Weeks of tests, doubts, and trials had culminated in this moment. He had earned a place, not just with her, but with the family and the community that had observed him so closely. The woman stepped closer, meeting his eyes. There was no need for words. Her smile was enough, small and gentle, full of meaning. It spoke of shared respect, quiet admiration, and the beginning of trust that could grow into something deeper. The cowboy finally allowed himself a small nod. He knew that this was not the end. The journey of acceptance and trust never truly ends, but this day marked a turning point. He had faced judgment, misunderstanding, and challenge, and he had remained true to himself. He had proven that love, respect, and integrity were not given lightly. They were earned, step by step, choice by choice. The family gathered around, some offering small gestures of acknowledgement. No loud celebration, no dramatic speeches, only the quiet understanding that a man of integrity had been recognized. The brother placed a hand on the cowboy's shoulder, a subtle gesture of approval, the weight of his respect unmistakable. Later, as the sun dipped low in the sky, the cowboy walked along the dust road outside the family home. The woman walked beside him, quietly, side by side. No words were needed. Their shared understanding had been established through patience, endurance, and consistent choices. The town watched quietly, noticing the subtle shift in the bond between them. The whispers of doubt were fewer now. Respect had replaced suspicion. Approval had been earned, not given lightly, and the lessons of patience, honesty, and integrity were clear for all to see. The cowboy understood that the journey ahead would still require effort, patience, and care. Trust is maintained, not assumed. But he also understood that the hardest part, the tests, the doubts, the judgments, had been endured and passed. He had proven that he could carry responsibility, respect tradition, and remain true to himself and to the woman he cared for. As the stars began to appear in the sky, the cowboy and the woman stood quietly together, the weight of the past weeks settling into calm understanding. No loud celebrations were needed. No promises beyond what had been earned were necessary. They simply stood, side by side, ready to face the future together with patience, honesty, and quiet strength. The town, too, had learned something. That integrity and effort could change perception. That patience and respect mattered more than words. That a stranger could earn a place not through charm or luck, but through steady, consistent action, even under scrutiny and doubt. And as the night deepened, the cowboy knew that he had found something rare: acceptance, trust, and the beginnings of love built on the strongest foundation, character and truth. He had walked a difficult path, faced every test, and emerged not only unbroken, but recognized as a man worthy of standing among them. The journey was complete, but the life ahead was just beginning. And in that quiet moment under the stars, everything felt possible.